This was unquestionably the darkest time in my professional career, and I certainly would have preferred that they make a film about my coverage of the civil rights movement or the Vietnam War or Watergate. But life's not like that. You play it as it lays. I'd never thought the film would get made when I was first told that maybe a film would. Never thought it would get made. And I'm really very pleased, to say nothing about being relieved, that the film is terrific. Whatever anyone thinks of me or Mary Mapes or the story, this is an extremely well written, well directed, and well acted movie, and for that I'm grateful.
First of all, I'm blushing. I don't know if you can tell, so thank you so much for that. I was, the way I came to it was I read Mary Mapes' book. Obviously, I was familiar with the story and had watched, just as a citizen in terms of how all of this firestorm sort of erupted. But it was Mary's book, who was a dance producer at the time, who Cate Blanchett plays in the film, that really got me interested in doing it as a feature film. And I thought, it was, such an interesting way to be able to go behind the curtain of how TV news was done and is done.
Having Robert Redford play one on the big screen is humbling, is the best word I can think of it. But I will say, and he's terrific in the role. He didn't just phone it in. He didn't just appear. He really worked at it. And, others will have to judge how well or poorly I've done it, but I've tried to be a play no favorites, pull no punches, lifetime reporter who was loyal to his people and supported his people. And I know that Bob Redford got the essence of that, and for that I'm very appreciative.
For me, it's interesting that I think it's one of the ways we process things as a culture. And I remember, when I grew up, I was born in 1975, and I remember in 1986, Platoon came out. And it was sort of one of the first times that, filmmaking took on Vietnam. And it was 11 years sort of after, less than 11 years after, but sort of, it was the first time we could sort of look back on a period in our history with some objectivity. And so I think it's part of our culture. It's sort of how we deal with things, and great stories can come out of that, and a similar amount of time. And I certainly wouldn't draw the parallel between Vietnam and this, but just in terms of looking back and in terms of things we've gone through in our culture, it seems to be part of the way we process it.
Well, I want to answer that. When it's as well done, as well made, and as accurate as this film is, I think it does nothing but improve and help culture. At least, again, with this film, in this sense. This film really resonates with what's happening today. I think in some ways it may be more relevant today than if it were made maybe 2 or 3 years after the event. Because at base what the film is about, it's not so much about me, not so much about Mary Mapes or even former President George Bush. At one level it is. But its overarching thing is what's happened to the news. Everybody knows that something's happened. What's happened to the news? Why did it happen? How did it happen? And why you should care. But in this instance, you talk about dramatizing, and of course it's a film, it's a Hollywood film, but this film is really accurate. And I happen to think, and I'll leave it to others to judge once they see the film, but this is a fascinating, multi-layered story about media, big corporations and their allies in the political world, and propaganda.
And I felt also for where we are now in terms of the media landscape, I think it's even more sort of relevant in terms of where we are today.
Well, it's a different cosmos now. It isn't just a different universe. It's a whole different cosmos. With the great and rightfully legendary Walter Cronkite, he basically was in a 3-tiered world, ABC, NBC, CBS. That world no longer exists. And let me say, if I may, just one point that you mentioned, my friend, and he is my friend, Brian Williams, that in some cases, it's very clear that the story was not true. The difference with the story that's depicted in the film Truth is that we reported a true story. Those who didn't like the story for one reason or another sought to attack it, but they couldn't attack it on its basic truths. So they attacked the process by which we arrived at the truth. And there is a difference.
I think there are wonderful journalists working today, working really, really hard to get the truth out there, to ask tough questions, and to continue doing it. And as different as the media landscape is today, and I think this film hopefully brings up some really interesting questions that people should think about, but it's really up to those journalists and to keep asking big questions, to keep sort of looking for the truth. I do have a lot of hope in the future, but, it's up to them.